Hi everybody, my name's Amelia and welcome back to my channel. Okay, so guys, this is insane. This is literally insane to me. Recently, the channel just reached 1,000 subscribers. I literally can't fathom 1,000 of you. I don't even think I could fathom a couple hundred, to be honest. I woke up one day and I hit that channel milestone, which for me was a milestone that I set for myself a while ago, and I'm like, I don't even know how to feel. Like, I'm kind of in shock, to be honest. Like, I never really thought that I would reach 1,000 subscribers. I know that sounds so silly, but like, I don't know, nah. But we did, and that is something worth celebrating for me. That's like reaching a goal, you know? And I do have lots of goals, but this was one that I used to think about a lot, and then I stopped thinking about it, but then like, if I really assessed like what was one goal I had for YouTube, it would be, you know, that 1,000 subscriber milestone. But anyway, I wanted to say thank you to all of you. This whole video is basically a big thank you. Like, thank you so much for following me and for being on this journey with me, for giving me advice and for having conversations with me, giving me topics you want to talk about. Like, I really, really, really value that. So for today, we're doing a pretty chatty, pretty comfy Q&A because that's something I haven't done on my channel for over a year, maybe 2 years. So I figured that today I would just answer some of your questions and just kind of have that conversation. So I did reach out to people on my Indie Tarot Mystique Instagram page, as well as here on YouTube in a community post. Going forward, I will probably try to be more on top of asking you guys questions while in a video. I've also saved up a lot of questions I get from people on Pinterest because that is where I'm like super active online. So I saved up a few questions from there, and I also saved up just some questions that I've seen on my channel in the comments or just like random DMs on social media. So I'm going to try to answer the most common questions today, but I didn't want this video to be like too long, so yeah. But yeah, I figured that it was time for you to get to know me a little bit more and for us to just chat and catch up on things, and then we'll get back to the regularly scheduled program come next video. So anyway, before we get into this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up if you like this stuff. If you want to know more about me, you can leave some comments down below. And yeah, I mean, if you're new here, hi, you can subscribe to the channel if you want, but this whole video is just a big thank you to everybody who's already subscribed and who has been with me on this journey, who has just, you know, like supported me, and I just feel really connected, and I'm really loving the community that we're building and this like space that we're creating together. So I am just, gosh, I'm very happy, so thank you. But alas, it is time to get into the questions, so let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so one of the first questions I get from a lot of you guys, and one of the most common ones, is when did you start YouTube and why? So we're gonna have to go back a little bit, a few years. I started YouTube back in 2020, and I know that like so many things happen like that, you know, like, oh, we all started hobbies in 2020, like that's, a lot of people went to YouTube, a lot of people started podcasting, like that's not totally unusual. The main reason that I started YouTube was because I was bored. It's weird to say it like that, but that's the reason I started. I was bored and I really wanted to, you know, get into, I thought about YouTubing for a while, but I never really knew what I wanted to talk about, and one day I just decided, you know, I have this blog that I've been posting about for a while, I've been active on Pinterest, and I was like, you know, I think I can do one more thing, and I think I can take on a YouTube channel and start posting video formats of the content that I'm posting on Pinterest and on my blog. So I did not get laid off or anything in 2020. I was considered an essential worker. I worked at Target, and so I was still working at Target, but my classes had moved online, and for a lot of my classes, the 3-hour class times they didn't exist like that anymore. Instead, we were just kind of given homework and books to read and then told to do the tests and stuff. So I had like 15 hours extra per week that I just didn't know what to do with. For a lot of that, I did spend time trying to get into freelance writing, and I spent a lot of time working on books that I wanted to write, which we'll get into those topics later. But I also spent a lot of time just working on my blog, and then I decided that I wanted to create my blog posts in a video format. So back in 2020, when I first started YouTube, a lot of my early videos were really crappy, but they were also all about things I talk about on my blog, most notably productivity. And I was sort of on this like the beginnings of a spiritual journey, but also just this journey in self-development and improvement during this period, which again, we'll get into all that later, but it has a lot to do with astrology. So I was going through a lot astrologically, and it was really weighing on me. And so that was sort of my outlet. When I started YouTube, again, it was just a way to kind of fill that space as well as to create another format of the stuff I wanted to talk about. And through YouTube, I feel like if I didn't start it, I wouldn't have grown to where I am today. So while this part doesn't necessarily answer the question, I mean, I think I kind of answered it just now, but I wanted to point out that YouTube has definitely been a big contributor to my growth as a person, to my spiritual wellness, and to my productivity and just my overall mental health, like, situation. And it's literally just because it's become a way for me to talk to like-minded people and to have some sort of creative outlet, and it's been just a truly transformational experience. My channel looks nothing like it did 3 years ago, and even like in the last 6 months I feel like it's still changing and evolving, and I feel like I'm really stepping into what I want to do, what I want to be talking about, where I want to go with it, and as a person I've changed so much, but I don't think a lot of these changes would have totally happened without YouTube, so that's pretty cool. The next question I get that a lot of people have for me is, what do you do for a living? A lot of people have this misconception that I am an influencer for a living. I am not an influencer. I do consider myself a content creator because I do that, but I don't influence people to buy things. I don't really like the capitalistic structure. I don't like buying things for the sake of buying them. Not to say that any other influencers, or if you're an influencer and you're watching this, not to say that that is wrong. It's just something that doesn't really align with my personal moral values. Similarly, everything I wear is thrifted. I do not like to buy fast fashion, but that again is because of my moral standing and my personal opinions, but that does not mean that I disvalue somebody who purchases fast fashion. So I'm not an influencer, I am a content creator. I have been paid before for my content, but that's not really the bulk of my income. As I mentioned, when I first started YouTube, I was actually a Target employee. I mostly worked the guest service counter. It was sort of stressful, but also really fun. I have like I don't know, I'm sort of nostalgic for it, but also, like, I don't know if I would ever want to go back. No offense to Target. Target was great, but, I mean, you know, that's like a chapter of my life. That we've already read. The chapter is closed, okay? We're moving on. But after I started YouTube and I really started stepping into who I wanted to be and creating that dream life for myself, I got into freelance writing, which is something that I really, really wanted to do. I went to college for creative writing, and ultimately I had to drop out of college. I couldn't afford it, but I thought to myself, this is not a time to give up. Just because I can't get the degree that I want, that doesn't mean that I have to give up. And so I ended up doing freelance writing, which meant that I was working for myself. To this day, I am still a freelance writer. I really, really enjoy it. Right now I work for a home decor website, and it is so fun, and I really enjoy the topics and talking to different people in the niche, and it's a really cool industry. There is a lot of consumerism in it, but I do think that the DIY aspects of home decor like really stand out to me, and those are like my favorite articles to write. Aside from freelance writing, which is the bulk of my income, I am also a author. And I do make a little bit of income off my books, but for the most part that's more of like a passion project, though when I do tell people like what I do as an occupation, it's usually just writing as a broad thing. I am a freelance writer and author, so yeah. Okay, so moving on to the next question. Somebody said, how did you learn tarot? Now, I actually have a video that I just posted like a month ago? something like that, on my channel, and you can see it. It's like a couple videos back, but it is how to learn tarot in 1 month. And that is if you had a very rigid set of like learning, if you really stayed on top of the curriculum, I guess, that I assign, then you could in theory learn tarot in a month. But if you don't, then it might take a little longer. But essentially I basically learned tarot in a month. And then I continued to learn as I continued doing tarot. So, okay, we're gonna go into another story time. Back in 2019, I was dealing with Pluto crossing my ascendant as well as Saturn in my rising sign. It was so rough. It was so stinking rough. Saturn and Pluto sat conjunct on my ascendant quite a few times, and it was the worst thing I've ever experienced. I hit an all-time low, like all-time low at that time. And I had thought that I hit the all-time low back when Saturn was in my sun sign. No, I hit the all-time low when Saturn was on my rising. And then of course conjunct Pluto, so great. I definitely emerged from all of that an entirely different person. So I do see the value in experiencing these things, but it was crazy. So at the time, I was actually looking for guidance. I was so lost and so miserable, and things were just so tough to deal with for me. So it all sort of started with a Harmony Nice YouTube video. Her channel talked a lot about, and I think her videos are still up, but her videos talked a lot about witchcraft and Wicca. And at the time I was like, okay, I need to learn more about this. I didn't know much about that sort of spiritual practice, and so I was diving into that. And in one of her videos she talked about tarot cards. And so I decided that I was going to purchase a tarot deck. And so this is in 2019. I ended up purchasing my first ever tarot deck, which is my Rider-Waite-Smith traditional imagery tarot deck, and it is by a brand called Magic Seer. I've talked about it a lot on this channel. It was my first deck, and it's so funny because I call this my Capricorn deck, and this deck healed that part of my rising sign so well. I'm a Capricorn rising. It healed that part of me so well. It was so fitting, so timely, and this deck was all about career and self-improvement, which is exactly what I needed help with at that time. So that's sort of how I got into it. When my first few readings, I actually just looked up the meanings online, specifically with biddytarot.com, because I think that Bridget's like descriptions of the cards is just really, really well thought out. It covers like every base. I really enjoy it. So I did a lot of that for other people and for myself. I ended up getting the Wheel of Fortune tarot card over and over and over again. So I'm very familiar with that card, and it doesn't follow me around anymore, but it did. And that was definitely hard to handle because at the time I did not trust the process. I did not believe that what goes around comes around, and that just because things were bad, things would get better. I did not believe that, and I think that's something that the deck really tried to drill into me. In the end, I ended up purchasing more decks. I actually was kind of rigid in my mentality, thinking that you only ever needed one deck, and it just had to be the traditional RWS system, that every other system was wrong. Those opinions, I don't hold those anymore, but I did at some point. I did talk about it in my tarot deck collection videos and oracle deck collection videos, so if you want to see those and you can get more of my insight on my tarot mentality, that's been said. But eventually I ended up purchasing more decks, and then when I moved back to my hometown, I ended up deciding that I wanted to memorize the tarot. So again, I spent that whole video talking about how to learn tarot. That was me explaining how I learned it. So if you want a really in-depth idea of how I learned the tarot, then that's it. And I learned it during the month of October because I wanted to give people spooky readings before my October Halloween party. That did not work out the way I thought it would, but I did learn the tarot very quickly, and then from then on I just continued to study it, and that's where I am today. So I guess I didn't fully answer this question, but it was, why did you learn the tarot? And I think that I did hint at it a little bit, which was just saying that I learned it because I was at an all-time low and I needed guidance, and I thought that tarot would be a tool that could help me, and in the end it was. It was that, and in conjunction with journaling, that really transformed my mental well-being. I used the tarot a lot to create guided prompts for myself, and then I would journal, and just doing those two things back and forth really, really changed me, and it made me happier, and I felt like I knew what I was doing. I found a new connection with the divine, and it was extremely important for me at that time because life was not good. Honestly, I think for me, the lockdowns were extremely helpful. I needed to retreat inward, and I needed to look at myself and my life, and if I hadn't been pushed out of school or stuck at home all the time and starting YouTube to take up the time that I had been doing other things, if I hadn't really slowed down and looked at life, I don't know where I would be. So in a way, it worked out the way it was supposed to, even though things were at the time hard to deal with. Okay, so the next question is, when did you get into journaling and why? And this is going to have two separate answers. I used to do a lot of scrapbooking and art journaling when I was younger. So when I was in high school, I used to do that a lot. Usually I would just take like a sheet of paper and make like a mood board type of thing. But then I also made my Costa Rica travel journal, which you can see, I think it's still up on my YouTube channel. I'm embarrassed to even direct you to that video, but I made that as one of my first ever YouTube videos, and I filmed that on my phone. But that was one of my first scrapbooks/travel journals that I ever made, and I did that back in 2017. And I did a lot of scrapbooking back then. Flash forward into like 2020 and 2019 really. It started in 2019, ended up becoming even more prominent in 2020. I started doing more journaling, just the written journaling, and then eventually I started scrapbooking again. I think it was because of that Costa Rica travel journal that I really started picking it up again. I saw it and I was like, man, this is gonna be so great, I want to do this again. And so I started scrapbooking, and then I filmed them and put them on Pinterest, and then I put them on YouTube as well. So if you were around at that time, you know that I had a lot of productivity videos, and then all of a sudden it shifted to journaling, and now we're somewhere in the tarot spiritual landscape, but journaling still, makes its comeback. And I still do a lot of journaling on Pinterest, so if you ever want to see those art journal spreads, you can see them all there because I film almost every single one of them. But yeah, that's how I got back into that. I just kind of picked it up for the writing part of journaling, I just picked that up in 2019 when I was at my all-time low, and then when I started art journaling again, it was just because I don't know, I saw my travel journal and I was like, wow, I want to do this. And then when I went on my Route 66 trip, I ended up scrapbooking that as well, and I think that really like set it in stone, like, yep, we're gonna keep doing this, and I'm so glad that I've kept up with that hobby because it is very therapeutic. Okay, so another question that I get from people who don't follow me on like Instagram. I'm not very active on Instagram, but for people who follow me solely on Pinterest for my journaling content, or people who follow me on YouTube for my spiritual content, journaling, just all those things, a lot of people don't know that I'm an author. So one of the questions is, you're an author, what books do you write? So I have written and published 3 books now. They're all behind me. I know there's one that you can see, it's in paperback and hardcover, but there's 3 books that I've published. I published a poetry book back in 2019 before I went to school, and then I published another book, I believe in 2020, and that was a contemporary fiction novel. It leans into magical realism, and it's called Witch in the Water. And that book is essentially about 5 young witches who attend a boarding school in Maine, and eventually this strange man comes on their campus. They don't know who he is, and once he arrives, a lot of bad things, a lot of bad omens start showing up, crazy monsters start showing up, and it's up to them to defeat this evil magic, otherwise the school will close. So that's the gist of that. So that was Witch in the Water. And then in 2021, I published Nameless and the Guardians of Earth, which is the first book in a series called The Nameless Chronicles, and that follows our main character, Ren. She's an elemental, she controls fire, and she works with this like ragtag team of magic wielders from all different walks of life, and their sole goal is to work with the gods to protect the earth from darklings, because darklings are rising up and they're going to take over the earth. Ultimately, the Shadow King, which is the leader of the dark, gets involved. She comes face to face with him, and then after hearing a prophecy from this mystical scroll, eventually the team realizes that there's a traitor amidst the group, and it's up to Ren to sort of figure out who the traitor is, as well as to stop the Shadow King from taking over the world. So that is that book. I am currently working on Nameless Book 2. I almost said the title, but I can't reveal it yet. But I'm working on Nameless Book 2. And that will be coming out very soon, I hope. Probably this year is my goal. And after that, I'll be starting another series, so that should be fun. So yeah, I'm an author. I do spend a lot of time writing, and I do publish my books. I am a self-published author, so indie, it's all done by me. Everything is done by me, but I prefer the self-published route simply because I have more control over my work, and I don't have to give up any element of control of my personal creation to a bigger corporation. So that's just why I chose to do indie. Not saying that you can't traditionally publish, it's just the path that I preferred. If you want to see any of my books or read them, you can find them on Amazon. So that's the easiest place, but you can also find Witch in the Water and the Nameless Chronicles a lot of other places. Like Walmart and Barnes & Noble, those are kind of the big ones, but there are a lot of different places. Okay, so another question I have received is, what is your sun, moon, and rising sign? So I already said what my rising sign is. I am a Capricorn rising. I like to work very hard, and career and the things that I produce are very important to me, and very central to my personality. But my sun sign is Scorpio, which I mentioned in my Fyodor Pavlov tarot deck interview session, and I might have mentioned it before that. But yes, I am a Scorpio. I don't really know how that plays into my personality, except for the fact that I obsess over things and I tend to value a lot of privacy in my life. But yeah, just telling you my big three is already terrifying. And for my moon sign, I'm a Pisces moon. So I don't know about you guys, but I think Pisces moons are more of a crybaby than Cancers. I don't know. Maybe a Cancer moon would be the ultimate crybaby. I don't know. But I'm a Pisces moon, so. And then another question is, what's your favorite and least favorite aspects of your birth chart? So since I run Indie Tarot Mystique and I give tarot readings to other people in my local area, and I also give out astrology and birth chart readings, there are a few things I will nitpick about my own chart. I'm actually going to pull my chart up now because there's so much to it. I've memorized a lot of it, but I really do value my Capricorn rising, but at the same time I don't. I feel like I tend to focus way too much on career. I also have a lot of 10th house placements, so having a lot of planets in my 10th house and having a Capricorn rising can be challenging because I tend to overwork myself very easily, all the time. It's the reason my friends say that I just do so much, and they're astonished, oh my gosh, you publish books and you have a YouTube channel and Pinterest and this, and you know, it is a bit overwhelming. I'm not gonna lie. I love it, and I do this on purpose. I do this to myself, but it can be tiresome. I think the most beneficial, maybe, I like that I have Neptune in the first house, and I think that's really sweet. I really like having Neptune in the first house. I feel like it gives you sort of a dreamy quality to your personality and makes you very creative and sort of whimsical and a little spacey, but that's okay, I don't mind that. So yeah, I like that. I like that placement. Alright, so it is getting dark and I'm going to have to stop filming, but that was a quick Q&A. If you guys have any additional questions, please let me know down in the comments below and I will try to answer you directly there. Yeah, maybe I'll do another Q&A sometime with different questions. I hadn't really thought about it. I hadn't really done it in a long time, so this was kind of fun just to sit down and chat and let you guys know a little bit more about me. I am sort of a private person. I tend not to share too many details online, but I feel like the thing that I've always loved about creators is when you get to know about their personal life and you get to know who they are and they're an actual person and not just somebody teaching you something online or somebody that is living this really cool life. And I think that it's really important for us to be able to know each other and have that sort of connection. Oh yeah, that's really cool. I didn't know you wrote books, or I didn't know that you were a Pisces moon, so am I, you know, there's that level of understanding and connection. So I don't know. But anyway, I had a lot of fun with this. I hope that you guys enjoyed it, and yeah, until next time, I will catch you later.